Well, hey, everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. What feels fantastic to say is we're in season 6, which is, I can't believe that I'm saying that out loud, but we are. We are fully booked with episodes into next year, everybody, and which feels great. You're seeing us on video now, which is on YouTube. If you're listening to the car, the gym, a walk, wherever you are, thank you for tuning in. Our next guest he's an Aztec, and he comes to us from the Vices group, who I met, the one and only Tommy Kosnik. We both were on a panel together, and we realized we got a lot in common. We think a lot in a lot of ways. We laughed our asses off. We helped some people. His name is Brian Brown, and since 1996, this guy's been a beast in the staffing and consulting industry. From any role you can think of, he's done it. He's now the founder of the Summerlin Group, the advisor group, where he's doing consulting work, leadership work, sales work, kind of a Swiss Army knife, which per se for businesses in the staffing industry, and probably other recruiting elements as well, but we'll learn all about that. But more importantly, we got Brian on today, everybody, to talk about Brian the dad and how he's working hard to become that ultimate quarterback or leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Brown, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And the Beast, or there's probably a few other names that I've been called out there. Who knows?
Beauty and the Beast? I might go into song if we start doing that.
Right?
Get the vocals warmed up.
Dad, right? You got to know these animated videos.
Right. Well, we always start out with gratitude on the podcast. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
You know, I'm very blessed in a very unique way with the years of difference of my children. So I've got a 25-year-old daughter, soon to be 26, and a 3-year-old son, soon to be 4 in the coming year. And I think it's a very unique and very precious gift as a dad to see things from two different perspectives, as a young father that's, trying to get a career going and focus on 18 different things at once, with my daughter when I was 27 years old versus now in my life with a 4-year-old where things have slowed down and you pay a little more attention and you listen more and you connect more. I'm very gracious and feel very grateful to be in a situation that, God bless me with a little guy at this age out of the blue to kind of kick me back into gears and remind me what I'm here for.
There we go, man. Well, I'm going to fight my curiosity because I want to learn all about that. But for me, I'm grateful for a couple of things. One, I'm grateful for high school basketball season. I love watching my daughter compete. It's so much fun. I get inspired by watching her compete. She's a scrappy. I feel like she never gets tired. I don't know where she gets that from, because I was in football. I played for 7 seconds, then I would rest in the huddle. Where she just competes, and I let inspire her. And then I'm grateful also. Right now we're recording everybody in December. This episode will come out in a month or so, and my son's home from college. And so I'm grateful for the time I get with him. He'll be home for another month or so. So I just enjoy each and every day and the laughter in the room. And he just sent me a Snapchat, which I'm on Snapchat now, everybody, 48-year-old shout out. I'm still young, kind of. But he sent me a Snapchat all jacked up. He eagled a par 4. He's playing golf in like 35-degree weather, and he's all jacked up. So I'm grateful for
that's awesome.
Happiness on his face.
That is awesome.
So... well, cool. Well, let's bring us inside the Brown huddle.
Okay.
Bring me inside. So we got who's playing quarterback, who's the general manager, and talk about both children for a little bit, and also how you and your wife met.
Sure. So my wife and I, will start with that because it's kind of interesting. I got married very young. So right I was still in college. A year after I graduated college, got married, had my daughter. And there was, interestingly enough, a 11-year age gap between myself and my wife at that time. So it was just a whole hodgepodge of kind of me starting a career, and she had been well into a career. And I think it was a really perspective shifter of, the hustle that I was kind of ramping up with. And her establishment, I think it kind of, we crossed paths very uniquely, probably after our 7 years of marriage, and we decided to get divorced. And we co-parented my daughter every week. We split time 50-50. My daughter was just an absolute gem growing up. I mean, I think dads and daughters, I'm sure you have that same thing. It's like, your little Velcro, they're your biggest cheerleader, and the hugs and the just, graciousness they bring to you every morning. So I think it helped both my ex-wife and myself kind of build a unique parenting bond, because she was so applicable to help us kind of manage that separation of state. And with me traveling with work and kind of growing a business and doing things and coming back home, and it was tough, but we did it. And I spent many, many years single and stayed focused on business. And a couple years before the pandemic, I met my wife now on the lines, and we got married, and COVID hit. And I mean, what do you do with COVID? You get a 12 pack of beer and hang out by the pool, and next thing here comes a little brewer into the world. And we decided to kind of engage a little different lifestyle. We were both born and raised in San Diego. We wanted a little bit of a change, so we had this ranch that we had in Poway. My daughter rode horses her entire life, so at one point we had 5 horses on the ranch. And when she went off to college and then went to grad school, etc., the horses had to get sold because I wasn't going to take care of them anymore. So we had this huge 2.5 acre ranch. We're like, we need to slow down. We need to look at things from a little different perspective. We don't need all of this. So we actually packed up and moved to Vegas. And we've been out here in Vegas for the last 2 years, and went from a 5,000 square foot house down to a 2,000 square foot house, and we just love it. We love kind of getting minimalized and getting a little more focused on family. So when you talk about quarterbacking, I would say uniquely, I think I've kind of taken a little bit of a step back in the quarterbacking these days. I think my wife is a very intelligent, passionate woman. She is a fantastic mother. I think there's a lot of shared plays that we call together. But I've learned to kind of let go a little bit. And it's a new perspective from being single, really, and kind of being a co-parent with an ex-wife, and making every decision about yourself and keeping every need about yourself. And then 3 days a week, you're playing dad because you're there and you have to be there, versus now at this age, it's like, I get to like pick him up from preschool every day and spend time with him and have conversations with him. And I let her kind of drive the ship these days. It's kind of a new perspective. I wasn't used to it at first, but I dig it. It's kind of fun.
That's awesome. And his name's Brewer, you said?
Brewer. Yeah.
What a fantastic name.
Yeah.
I love that.
I wanted to call him Brewster, but she's like, I can't be calling him Punky Brewster running around the house. I'm like, oh, all right, we'll find something else.
You could call him Brewski with the 12.
He's got every nickname, Casey. I mean, it's Brewster, Brewski, Brew, Little Brew, Baby Brew. I mean, he's a hoot.
There we go. Well, before we dive into what you just shared, I always like learning more about my guests about what was life like for you growing up, and talk about the journey that the impact your parents had on you, and what were some of the key lessons you learned through that journey now that you're a dad, maybe the first time, now the second time.
Sure. So family-wise, born and raised in San Diego, California. My father was a United States Marine Corps drill instructor at MCRD in San Diego. So my mother never worked, never drove a car, never cursed, never had an ounce of alcohol. She was about as June Cleaver could be. Just a fantastic, took care of myself and my brother, and my dad worked 2 jobs. He left school in the 8th grade, worked in a coal mine in Kentucky and Ohio, steel mills, and his mother signed him up for the Marine Corps when he was 17 years old, because she knew that the family was not going the right direction. He was the oldest kid, and she wanted him to get something out of life, and she signed him up early to join the Marines. He flew out to San Diego, started his journey as a Marine Corps vet, and I think he built a commitment in a life that was going to be family first, and he wasn't always there. He worked 2 jobs. I mean, it was he was out the door at 4 a.m. He came home at 10 o'clock at night. And my mom kind of ran the house. We would see him on the weekends. 11 years difference between my brother and I. So I think my brother spent a lot of his, I think, teenage and young 20s kind of filling the role of father figure for me, because my dad was working, and bless his heart, that the guy put food on the table and shoes on our feet, and we got a vacation every year, and he was always there in spirit. But it was an interesting time, because it was like I had a 20-year-old father basically when I was a kid, showing up, taking me to baseball games, and doing things like that. So my brother and I had a unique relationship in that capacity. Uh, and then my mother got sick, and she came down with Parkinson's disease when she was 37 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and pretty traumatic quickly. I mean, she went from very vibrant, walk everywhere, woman, to basically not being able to get out of a chair, at 42, 43 years old. And then she had a kind of I guess, a experimental surgery where they put implants into her brain and almost like ran a uh, wire down her neck to like a pacemaker that would shoot electrical currents up in her head. And it was a godsend. It put her back into functional life for a good probably 15 years. And then it just stopped working. So when she became immobile, my dad quit his job, kind of retired at 54 years old. I was finishing up high school, playing baseball. Was put in a kind of a cool situation. I know you played college sports, and I got drafted to play minor league baseball out of high school. Did that, and my dad took care of my mom, and it was this unique commitment of family, and it was cool to see that he was first and foremost. It's not money, it's not job, it's not anything other than that's my wife. So it was cool to see.
Wow. What was the second job your dad did when he was in the Marine Corps?
So he left the Marine Corps, and he became a printer. So he worked for General Dynamics out of the Marine Corps, running print machines. So running blueprints, top secret clearance, printing out cruise missile blueprints in a skiff, lead room with one phone. He's like, all right, here it is. I got to transport it now. Well, he'd do that, and then at night he'd go to print shops in San Diego and run, printing jobs, invitations for weddings, or whatever. He'd run all these. I remember going to a shop, and I remember to this day the AB Dick machine. This is giant printing machine that would sit there, and he'd be like, "Here, give me another ream of paper." I was like, 8 years old, like loading paper into these like giant machines, like literally like cha 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 cha, like huge, like room filled machines. And you think about today what a printer can do, right? And I mean, he was doing this, making $13 an hour for 20 years. I was down in San Diego, interestingly, and this is kind of a unique perspective for Thanksgiving, and he was talking to me about his retirement. So he worked Marine Corps, then obviously did this printing job for General Dynamics. But his retirement check from General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin, which bought his division at one point, is a startling $32 a month. So when we think about our lives and accumulation of wealth and how to live, et cetera, like I look at my dad going, he never made more than $42,000 a year, but he lives he lives in a nice house he's had since 1961, and he's gotten by. He's 86 years old now, still drives a car, going out to casino, got himself a girlfriend.
Let's
It's
go. Had a boy.
yeah,
He's like Blue from Old School.
totally, totally. He's got his Tuesday girlfriend. They go do their slot machines, and like they go up and do their thing, and they couple days a week. He's got every gift of a casino in the back of his house. I go, is this like your re-gift for like Christmas now? Like, I'm not kidding you. Like floor to ceiling, like walks, air fryers, like all this stuff like that. He's turned into like, that guy you see at the casino hanging out, hitting the slots.
Now, did we lose mom?
Yeah, mom passed away in 2008.
Sorry to hear that, brother. I lost my dad in 2021. So my mom's still with us. My mom's vibrant, outgoing. She's 70. She'll be 75 in October of next year.
Awesome. Awesome.
She's loving. I mean, stays busy and all that stuff. As you think about like core values your parents taught you that were super important, tell me what a couple that come to mind.
Well, as a drill instructor, Marine Corps, core value number one is right to be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late, and to be late is to be forgotten.
There we
The rule
go.
number one of Jim Brown was you got to show up, you got to be there, and you got to be ready. I think that is one thing from a work perspective that was, I don't care if it was cutting the lawn, doing things around the house. I mean, it was there's a regiment, there's a schedule, and you got to show up. I mean, half the job is showing up and being ready to do what you need to do. And I think taking that future 30 some odd years later, I can't tell you how many times I've used that line. Is to be early is to be on time. Like you never want to be late. I don't care. You're at your national convention, you're at your awards ceremony, whatever, and you've been drinking all night at happy hour and entertaining. If the show starts at 9, you're there at 8:45, and you're in your seat and you're ready to go. Like that's rule of thumb. Your client meeting is at 9 a.m. You're there at 8:45. You're ready. You never want to waste somebody's time. So having that perspective. The second thing he always said is pay yourself first. From a core value perspective of looking at things going, before you think about your wants and your needs, pay yourself because you've got to plan for the future, and you got to look at yourself in that perspective of, it's almost like the Wayne Gretzky quote: "It's not where the puck is, it's where the puck will be." Right? Pay yourself first. And I think, my dad was, he was an over communicator. He never wanted. It couldn't be a bigger dichotomy. My mother was the empathetic, the hug, the love, the care, the building up of somebody's character and just, having the emotion of life. And my father was it is the steps that you take that build your life and work. Very methodical about it. So I think my mother taught me empathy, to understand and listen to people, that there's always a situation that you don't know about, that you need to investigate when people make decisions and do things. And my father was, never be the person that somebody is questioning your ethics and your work ethics and the things that you do. So I think that was, kind of the two or three main points that I can really coin back to my childhood and say, if I pin something on the wall, I think those would be it.
I love it. Well, that tells me a lot about you, brother, on where like your, I guess, passion for like great communication and success in sales and business. And you talk about being early on time, showing up, and over communicating. And you do those three things in sales, you're going to be better than most.
Agreed.
You
And being
know?
tenacious, right? I mean, you can't give up. I mean, sports, taught you that. I mean, I think it was more important. It was like, you never, winning was great, but losing was worse.
Yeah.
Like the pain of losing a game or, being a part of that losing season, it's like that hurt more than the celebration of the win. So I think I poised myself from a sales perspective of that competitive nature of, I love winning, but I hate losing more than I love winning. And
Yeah.
being able to push through, to achieve things like that in sales and in leadership and, life, I think that's been kind of one of those things that's really set into me at a very young age.
Um, okay. So we got a dad who's 86 and still driving, that's uncommon. So the days, if you're, because I hate to say it, everybody, our parents do frustrate us from time to time. But when your dad frustrates you, I'll just say, just take a deep breath and say, the dude's 86 and still driving.
100%.
So cool.
100%. We just stayed at his house for the last week of Thanksgiving, and it's funny because my wife and I joke because her mom and stepdad, similar. You hear the same story kind of over and over. Like it's like there's a few core stories you're going to hear every trip and about everything. And she reminds me, you're not always going to be able to hear those stories. So listen to them now. Like take advantage of the fact that they're still here. They're still telling those stories, and it still means something to them. And let them tell that story and enjoy it.
Mhm. No, exactly, because we're gonna be them one day, and
100%.
we're gonna probably be annoying our kids and not doing it on purpose.
Hey, I just got my AARP card. I'm ready.
Love it. Um, okay, so you're take all that into account now. Now I want to go into like your daughter. So you're raising your first daughter with the things you learned. Talk about the things that your parents taught you that you applied for her, and what were some of those. Maybe I'll just stop there and before I keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time, because like I said, I was separated and then divorced when she was little. So, and I remember kind of diving into work. So I left Robert Half after being a regional vice president for years. And I bought into a franchise up in San Jose pre 9/11 and had this brilliant idea that, the Bay Area is going to blow up and we're going to, I'm taking all this, vim and vigor that I had and all the success of, 1999. I'm going to make this freaking crazy. So I walk away from this amazing job, Robert Half, after I, I shouldn't say walked away. I got fired because I told the COO of Robert Half to F off. Um, True story. We can get into that about learning things as a young, full of yourself vice president.
You can drop an
Um,
F bomb if you want. I can put the little E next to it, so let them fly if you want.
okay. So I was flying up Monday morning. I was flying home Thursday night into San Jose, and I would, pick my daughter up Thursday night. I'd have her from Thursday to Sunday night every weekend. That was like the rotation. And taking that perspective of, you've got this young child that you have to almost reconnect with every week because, I'm not there every day. And, you know, ensuring that she felt that dad was there, that whether I was there or not, dad's there, and building that communication with her, even, at 2 versus, 14, is having open lines of communication. Uh, you know, I think, especially as a dad of a daughter, as she got older, being able to allow her to share the emotions and not take the testosterone perspective and shut it down. Okay, that's crazy. Don't do it like that. I mean, we've all been there, but being able to stop and just let her as a going from a child to a young woman to a woman. I mean, it's helped my relationship with my wife now tremendously. I credit, I think, my daughter of teaching me how to better communicate and connect with, a relationship with a significant other, because I think I was full of myself for a very long time. And like, my way was the right way. And I think, learning to hear and see things from, I call it the 3-foot vision, right? The 36-inch vision of that little kid and what they look at and what they see. Sometimes you got to bring yourself down there in life and in business and look at it from that different vantage point. You spend way too much time up here at 6'1", looking out of over here at this viewpoint. It's our job to get down here, get on your knees and have a conversation, and give a hug and understand and hear. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? And absorb it and make sure you understand it and really connect. I think that that's a life lesson that she taught me, is you have to connect and understand it. Like it at that age, and as they're growing up, it's their viewpoint. It's your job to guide and curate this little person to adulthood, but you got to understand really what they're feeling, because that's all they have right now. They don't understand what their feelings are. It takes a long time to figure that out. Um, and giving them an opportunity to share that is just, I think that was the biggest lesson I learned from her. She taught me a lot.
Well, you hit on something that one of the reasons I started this podcast almost 6 years ago now, which sounds cool to say, is whether you're the CEO of a company, a bus driver, a pro athlete, um, whatever, how cool you think your job is. Hint, dads, our kids don't give two shits.
Yeah.
They don't, and we think they do because we got these thing called a male ego, which is a scary thing sometimes.
Touche.
But but what they care about is, hey, can we get ice cream tonight? Hey, is Dairy Queen still open? Think we can get a blizzard
Right.
real quick? Hey, can I go to
Yeah.
Susie's house, spend the night? Hey, I know you want to watch the game, Dad, but can we watch this movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think reminding us all that this like Ryan Holiday says in his book, The Ego is the Enemy. It's like I work hard to keep that ego checked at all times, and my wife had did a fantastic job of keeping me humble throughout my whole life. My coaches did the same thing. My parents, my friends, but and you said something that triggered that thought, Brian, because you said your daughters taught you along the way that now has helped you in your second marriage. Is there a story that comes to mind of when you really had to check that ego that might hit home for a dad at home, where you realize, shoot, maybe this isn't always my way, and that might help inspire dad to maybe have a different conversation with his daughter tonight?
There's probably 1,000. I think I called them the mean-ager years, right? So I think as soon as she hit that 13, 14, there was definitely a dynamic shift of this is, dad's best friend, buddy, do anything with dad. Dad's my hero to, you know, the conversations change.
Dad's a douche now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, so I think trying in that period, it was a big shift for me. And I think it was kind of a head scratcher. Like what the fuck? Like, where did you go? Like you were right here. Like you were right here. And now you're somewhere over here and I have no idea how to connect with you. And I think, starting with you got to put that tablet down. You got to put your phone down. Like you come home, like, let's have a conversation. And then that was a little demonstrative and it didn't work. Right. It put more barriers and it put, I think, a different feel of, adversarial almost, like of, well, I'll tell you and I'll go upstairs and I'll do this. And, so I think, it took a while to realize of kind of shifting my brain of, instead of like, let's just come home and, sit in the house after school, like, let's take 5 minutes and go somewhere. And like, we live in this great part of San Diego called Poway, and there's a lake, has this beautiful walk, and, it's awesome. So I'd force her to like go for a walk. Like, instead of going home after school, you're 14, you and I are going to go get a little exercise. We're going to walk and we're just going to talk. And we're going to take 20 minutes and look at this beautiful lake. We do this twice a week, minimum. We were pretty steady on it. And then it became where she was like, well, Dad, are we going to go our walk? I like the exercise. Let's do the hill this time. Okay. Yeah, great. Let's go do that. And it became more of like, now we're, and I hate to say friends, because I didn't want to be a friend. I wanted to be a dad. But I think building or shifting the connection that we had, where it was, I was, kind of directing what we were doing, versus let's change our atmosphere and take us both out of where I guess the role of dad and daughter is 100% in place, i.e. the house. Like, let's go somewhere and like, hey, afterward, let's stop and, over here and like, we'll grab a bite to eat, or like, it just took the perspective, it shifted it. And it certainly helped. I mean, obviously there was times where it was like, I don't know who this kid is still. I mean, that's teenagers. But it certainly, I think, could have been worse. It could have been worse, but we did that probably for a good, through her junior year. And then when she got her senior year, she was working almost, 20 hours a week, riding horses. And, it was definitely the, hey, Dad, I'll see you on Saturday kind of mentality. It's like, I got a car now and this is what we're doing.
Yeah. So when you when you told her you got a little guy in the way, how did she take it?
Horribly, horribly. It was shock. It was like, Dad, what are you doing to me? Like, I'm your child. I said, hey, you think you're surprised? You think I mean, what do you think about us? I mean, I'm 48 years old. Like, this wasn't planned. This was not our plan. We're moving to Vegas. We were going to go back and forth with this lifestyle. And it took her a while, in all honesty, Casey, to come around. I mean, she struggled mightily going from, kind of, on dad's pedestal. Dad's so proud of me. Dad's my biggest fan. To look at it and actually embrace, I think, the perspective that she's now not alone in this world. That she's got a little brother. She'll have a little bit of me in her life now forever, and be, have to build that relationship. So it took her, I think, a good 18 months, 24 months to kind of come around to the fact that, I didn't do this to her, and maybe embrace it differently and look at it as, well, this is actually a pretty good gift. It's interesting. I mean, he's 20 years younger than me, but I think it's pretty cool. So, now there's like family trips. Now we're doing things together. Now it's come around quite a bit.
That's awesome. That's cool. You said when we started recording the very beginning about just the different perspectives, as like it's almost like you're playing 36 holes. You got your first 18 in the golf analogy, and now you're going to play the second 36. And you might play each hole differently. Tell me a couple things you're going to do the same from a dad perspective, and then maybe tell me a couple things you might do differently as you're raising the brewman.
I mean, I'll start with the different perspective. Like it is. I mean, I would say that I was open for like embraces and hugs and kisses, but not that much. And I think this time around, it's like, you know, it's hugs all day. It's I think connecting with, him in that perspective and letting him know that, how much he's cared for and loved. I think that my daughter, because it was, I wasn't there every day. It was, I think, hard to get that going again. And it was like restarting every week to do it and not being with her. But with Brewer, it's, I mean, he runs downstairs and runs up, and like it's hugs, it's give dad a kiss. Like, I mean, it's a whole different level of, I think, I call it embracement, or I don't know what the right word is here, but I don't think I ever or thought that I would you know be in a situation where you know I was open to that again. Like, it was like my daughter was grown, and here comes this little guy, and it was like, nah, I am like, this is great. Like, I couldn't have asked for anything more. And then I think that doing something the same. I think the being there and communicating, and talk about that 3 foot level. I say that my wife and I always talk about that. Like, make sure you're getting down to their perspective. And I think that's something I did very well with my daughter. I think that I need to continue that now. And I think it's a perspective that we all need to remember, is that not everybody's here. Um, get down, take the stilts off. Make sure you see it from that branch of the tree and understand and appreciate where someone else is, and you know what they're going through and what they need. There's wants and there's needs. What do they need? What is this, an emotional thing? Is this, is he frustrated because he didn't get his Cheerios or his Paw Patrol TV show, or is something bothering him? And it's like, it's kind of cool to see this little guy go, Dad, I'm angry. I'm like, nice, all right, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
What
that's
did I
funny.
do?
Well, I love that you can talk that well and say
Oh
it.
man, he is. I'm very. Talk about a beast. So he's not even 4 yet. He's almost 4 feet tall. He's 42 pounds. Um, the little dude is just he's a hoot. He's a little comedic genius. Like, I love it. Like, he's
You
got
got
such
him.
a personality.
You got him doing power cleans or deadlifts yet?
Oh, he does his workouts. Yeah, we do our workouts together. We get the bands out. He does his mountain climbers, and he's like on the ground, like he's getting it going. At his first year of t-ball already, we got it happening. I'm like, buddy, I'm going to take that right arm and put it behind your back. There, we're going to get you throwing lefty. We got to get you lefty.
Paint the corners. Um, Now, were your parents affectionate with you?
Zero,
I think
zero.
it was generational.
I think it was. I mean, I probably could, growing up. I mean, it's funny now. My dad tells me he loves me all the time, but growing up, I think maybe I could count two times on my hands that I ever heard him say, I love you or I'm proud of you or anything like that. There was no hugs, there was no high fives, there was none of that. I mean, it was more of like, hey, you piece of shit, get over here and get the yard done. I mean,
Right.
I think it was generational. It's like you know, it just I wasn't him. And my mom was kind of similar. I mean, it was like, hi, honey, but there wasn't a lot of affection. There wasn't hugs. There wasn't kisses. Completely different. Like my wife's family, so different. Like her mom, kisses, her son and daughter, and they kiss each other and hug each other. They tell each other they love each other every day. Like it's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, it's funny. My mom was very affectionate. My dad, yes and no at times. I don't remember him being like, I don't know, maybe he was older. My dad was like 9 years older than my mom, so I don't know if that led into it. But my football, like my mom and dad loved watching me play football in college, and my dad almost freaking bankrupted himself going to some shithole towns I'd play in, and but at the end when he was getting ready to pass away, he was very affectionate, and so like for me, I just watching that journey and then like seeing the power of like the emotional intelligence in like my life and my corporate life, my marriage, my friends. It's like I just want I think of like three pillars: humility, vulnerability, and curiosity. I think it was often, and I try to teach my kids those. I try to teach myself those, and with those three things, like affection is big in our house too. And I have a 16-year-old daughter, and so like when you were talking about your daughters going, I mean, I went through that, and like times I remember going to my wife, I'm like, what did I do? Like, why? I feel
Right?
like I'm the same dude, but it's like your feelings get hurt. You kind of feel like lose a little confidence. I'm like, oh, what am I?
Yeah.
But then she comes around, and I just think I control it. I can control like, hey, I'm here to talk here. Need to. Hey, I love you, honey. Hey, I'm proud of you. Just trying to just communicate as much as I can. But I'm hopeful. But I definitely, she definitely, there's like she and I have the bond of basketball, and I rebound for her. That's like our jam. But
Oh,
like
nice.
her and my wife are like super close, and which I want her to talk about the girl stuff with her. She's not going to talk about her menstrual cycle with me. What do I know about that? you know. Um,
Hey, I do remember though, like being prepared for that. I like went to the store. I got all the little stuff. I'm like, okay, I've got you set up. So whenever this happens, like we've got it. We've got it covered. And she's just like looking at me like, "What'd you do, Dad?" I'm like, "Just saying, I got you
yeah,
covered. We're
got you
ready.
back.
We're ready."
What would you say? So you mentioned affection. You mentioned some things you continue to do. Is there an area of your dad game that now that you have this like second attempt that you're like, man, I made this mistake early, but I'm not going to make this mistake now. And because like for me, one of the areas I work on hard at, I think talking to so many dads, that feel like free therapy for me when I interview people is patience. Like as a competitive guy, that's my gap. And so I have to focus hard on just staying patient and not overreacting and not just be present and not try to
Yeah,
control and fix.
I think that's a great point, and I think I started to kind of realize that. I think it's I think you said this earlier too. Being present tied with being patient is such a critical situation. Like my little dude loves being the helper. So I don't care if I'm changing a light bulb, underneath the sink, building a cabinet. Like he wants to be right there and he wants to like help and he wants to see what's going on. Like he thinks it's so cool that we're fixing. Like he calls it, Dad, what are we fixing? What are we fixing? What are we like? He's so into it. And being able to slow down and be like, okay, so like this is a screwdriver, this is what it does, this is a tool, this is danger, and it just warms my heart. He goes, danger, danger, like it's so funny. But like he wants to be there, and it's like I'm in the middle of this stuff and I want to get it done, and I'm like, okay, don't be a dick, Like he is, you've got this little guy that is so enthralled by you right now,
Yep.
and he wants to learn everything that dad is doing and be part of this. Like, don't be impatient with him. Show him how it's working. Let him understand it a little bit. And then, now he's like, he gets over to his little chair and he gets out his little fake tools. He's like, I'm fixing, I'm doing this. He's like talking to himself. Like, he's like, listen. And, then he's dropping the F bomb like dad does when I do something stupid. Right. And mom's just like, Brian, I'm like, hey, you say it too. Like, ah. But like, seriously, he's like doing his little thing. He's like, what the fuck? And I'm like,
Can't say that, buddy.
yeah, that's one of those no words.
That's funny. Okay. Well, before we dive into what you're doing at the Summerlin Group, if you were to like summarize what we've talked about as dads, that people can take from our conversations, lessons learned, the journey along the way, that a dad can take from our conversation. If you think about it like actionable advice, tell me a few things that come to mind that dads can take from our episode that will help them become that better ultimate or quarterback leader of their home.
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, if I kind of look at this and, having this conversation with you, is you got to stop. I mean, there's so many things that I think that we think that are so important. There's nothing more important than, cultivating and building that life, that little person, that person that is growing into a contributor to the world, in your family. And, we need to stop as dads. We get so busy. I mean, I know I do. It's, the stock market did this, work did this, I got this problem with this situation. This broke, all of these things that come at you, you just got to stop and like, make sure you're taking the time to get down on that 3-foot level to, enjoy and hear and love and care for that little person, and as they get older, they're going to need you more. You think about how your life changes from, 5 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 45. I mean, the problems and the situations and things that you have to deal with are so tremendously different. And the aspects that we can do as a dad to hit and give that advice and be there of, okay, I got to take my own advice sometimes. Pause. Don't move so fast. Like let's just sit in the moment and let's really figure this out. And I think as dads, we have to pause with our time. Like we can't let everything else command our time. We've got to make sure that we're present, we're engaging, we're engaging with our relationship, whether, you are married or, you have a partner or maybe you're divorced, but that co-parenting relationship, because I've had both now, is so important. That's that person is so relatively a part of that life journey for that child. You've got to be there. You got to cultivate it. And no matter how angry or whatever you feel, you've got to be able to have some commonality in the fact that you brought that person in this world. You've got to make sure that you take care of them.
Yep. No, I love it, man. Well, I'm jealous of your being able to fix stuff. If you Google like worst handiest person and then click images, my face comes up. I wish I was handy. So kudos for you for slowing down and even catching yourself, because I know you're probably not perfect at it, but it sounds like you're more often than not, you're slowing yourself down. You're teaching the broom man how to use a screwdriver. Like my son's not handy because I'm not handy. My wife's super handy. My daughter's handy. I'm jealous of that. And so, but I try to, like when we're working on something, like I'll try to throw myself under the bus first to kind of humble the room and show vulnerability to my son. Like, hey dude, listen, I suck at this stuff. We can figure it out together, dude. But it's like tongue in cheek, like make fun of yourself a little bit, but like know that, hey, just because I'm not good at that, there's other things you're really good at. I'm really good at. We all have our strengths and weaknesses.
100%.
Okay. Before we go into the lightning round with some fun, random stuff that shows you
Sure.
the negative hits of my that I do have a screw loose, pun intended. Tell us what the Summerlin Group is about, and tell us if people want to connect with you and learn more about you and your work. Tell me how we can make that happen for people.
Absolutely. So, Summerlin Advisory Group kind of came out of my brain of I'd sold my business. I'd taken a board seat, had a couple year non compete, um, and wanted to get back in business. I'm not done. I think there's a lot to contribute, and I truly love doing what I do, which is helping to grow companies either from an operational or sales perspective. And I got connected with a couple of people that were referrals. They're like, "Hey, come help us do this." I'm like, "Oh, sure." The next thing you know, there's 4 or 5 different companies asking me to either function as a fractional CEO or a fractional CRO or whatever. And it kind of just spurred to my brain of, well, I really like this. Rather than going and starting another business, why don't I just help other people avoid the pitfalls that I've fallen in probably 1,000 different times, whether it's people, operations, taking a shitty financing deal or factoring deal or all the different mistakes we make as business owners, and help them navigate through this kind of growth phase, which is, really kind of the wild, wild west. And how do you get to the industrial revolution? Like, let's make that jump. So Summerlin Advisory Group kind of spurred from that. I've got a couple really strong former clients of mine actually that have come on to be advisory ship as well to help out companies in different aspects from a CFO financial perspective or more of an automation tool perspective. But we've got a really good group of folks that are have either owned a business, ran a large scale business, helped grow a business, and we kind of come in and help you figure out your current state and where you want to be, where the road fall and the pit blocks and the this, that, and the other thing, and let's move that landmine over here and let's keep moving. So that's who we are, and we're happy. I specialize mostly in the staffing business. I've got one completely ancillary customer that was a construction company, and they've been working with me now for almost 2 years, and it's been kind of fun looking at it from a different perspective. But I've owned staffing and professional services firms for 20 years, so that's really my niche.
Very cool. Well, I will make sure that's linked in the show notes. And is LinkedIn maybe the best way to for people to they want to connect with you on social, or is there another platform you
Absolutely. Or you
prefer?
can go to Summerlin Advisory Group website, just summerlinadvisory.com, or LinkedIn. Love to connect with you.
Awesome. Brian, I will make sure that's all linked in the show notes. It's now time to go on what I call lightning round,
Let's do
where I
it.
show you the negative hits of taking too many football hits, not bong hits in college. And as a quarterback in the 90s, I definitely got my bell rung quite a few times. So I don't have any questions prepared. I'm just going to
Let it rip.
ask these as quickly as I can. Your job is to hopefully answer them as quickly as I can. And then my
All right.
main job is to try to get a giggle out of you.
Deal. Let's do it.
Okay. True or false? Brewster is more handy than I am.
True.
Bingo. Spot on. Got it. If you were to go back and watch your dad in the Marine drill sergeant, what would be the one Hollywood character that would best play him in a movie?
James Earl Jones is the voice. My dad has a bellowing voice. Like there's no question. When he's talking, what's going on.
There you go. I thought you might say Tackleberry from Police Academy, which I was prepared for just in case. For those the shout out Police Academy fans out there, well, that was the first time I've mentioned Tackleberry on the
Yeah,
podcast.
seriously. Yeah, getting some but what was the guy that talked really, really weird?
God darn it.
Bobcat, or what was his name?
Yeah, it's not come to me. I'm going to get made fun of my buddies. I should know this.
Goldthwait, Bobcat Goldthwait, something like that.
So good.
Getting my police academy, Steve Gutenberg. All right, let's go. We digress.
I know. Okay, tell me the most impactful book you ever read.
21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Okay. Favorite movie of all time is?
Star Wars.
Okay. If you were going on vacation right now, just you and your wife, sorry, Brewster, you're staying home, buddy. Where are we going?
Mammoth.
Okay. If I was to come to your house for dinner tonight, what would you cook me?
Enchiladas.
That's tasty. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
I stepped in shit and came out with roses.
That is a home run. Right, for the record. I stepped in shit and came out roses. Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
yeah.
Okay. So that book, Brian, is every bookshelf. It's gone. Amazon can't keep enough copies. It's sold out in airports, Barnes and Noble. No one can keep this thing. And so now Netflix has found out about it. They're going to make a movie out of it. You are now the casting director. I need to know who is going to star. And I stepped in shit and it came out roses.
I would say it's a great question. I'm gonna go with somebody dynamic. I gotta think of somebody dynamic. Nah, I'll go old school. I said Star Wars. Let's bring Mark Hamill back in. Let's bring Mark Hamill back. Let him rock it out.
Solid, solid choice. Okay. And last question. Tell me two words that would describe your wife.
Beautiful and dynamic.
Boom. Lightning round's complete. We both giggled. I tend to laugh at my own jokes, which is what dads do. Brian, it's been fantastic getting to know you. I'm grateful that Tom Kosnik and our paths crossed paths, even though the fantastic Mark Agostinelli, he was there too for that panel. I appreciate the vulnerability, the honesty you shared. I know there's a family out there that hopefully listens that maybe has a gap in ages and kids. And so hopefully they learned a little bit from our conversation today, learned from your wisdom you shared. I'll make sure that everything's linked in the show notes so people can learn more about Summerlin Advisory Group. But it's been an honor spending time with you today. I'm grateful and wish you and your family the best with holiday season. Yet this episode will come out in 2025. But again, thanks for spending time with me today on the Quarterback Dadcast.
Really appreciate it. And congratulations on 6 seasons. That's great.
Thanks, man.